Hey you, StitchMaster Murray here, drinking coffee way too late in the afternoon, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a corset top. This corset top, to be specific. This is one of my latest creations, and I got a lot of requests through an Instagram reel that I posted, so I'm going to share the free printable pattern. Hopefully you know the drill by now if you've done my tutorials before. Click the link in the bio, print out the pattern, and you can sew along from home. Corset tops are very forgiving in size because of the lace-up back, but if you are proficient with pattern drafting, you might want to measure the pieces before and make sure that they fit your body. If you want to join what I call our virtual sewing club, subscribe to my channel and sew along, leave some comments. If you want to show me what you make because you're proud of it, you can DM me at StitchMaster Murray on Instagram. I love getting excited about projects with people. This corset top that I made is reversible, and I like wearing it this way, and I actually like that you can just see a peek of the pattern coming through, but I gotta show you the other side too because the fabric is incredible. There she is. I found this fabric that says Blitz all over it at a thrift store in Portland like 2 years ago, and I finally decided that this was the perfect project for it. Ooh, I don't know which side I like better. You guys can all vote. Depends on the outfit really, but this side is really fun. Anyway, back to the tutorial. The materials you're gonna need are gonna be displayed here on the screen somewhere. I don't know how I'll do it yet, probably just a list like I do in most of my videos. And then I'll give you an overview of the steps, and then we'll dive into the in-depth tutorial. To make the StitchMaster corset top, you are going to cut out your pieces. Sew all pieces of the outer shell right side to right side. Sew all pieces of the inner shell right side to right side. Turn down and sew the bottom edges of both. Sew the top and side edges of the outer shell to the lining shell, leaving the bottom open. Sew boning casings into each vertical seam. Cut boning to size and file the edges. Slip the boning into the casings and sew the lower edges shut. Install grommets on the back ends and lace up the back. Before I start the tutorial, quick tangent, today I am wearing head to toe my own StitchMaster original pieces, original patterns, all made from secondhand materials. The skirt was a table mat, the top was a tablecloth, and this little headband piece was a shirt. I got them all at estate sales in the Bay Area. The first step to making the StitchMaster corset top is, once you have your pattern, you're going to cut out each piece of the pattern from the fabric that you've selected for the outer shell and the lining shell, which just means that this corset top is going to end up just being one long piece that wraps around, and then the ends have the lace up back. So you need to make two versions to sew right side to right side. So you can use two different types of fabric, like I'm going to use the white and the Blitz fabric like I showed in the opening. Or you can just use one type of fabric, or you can use a cotton fabric for the outside and some sort of like nice silk comfortable lining, whatever you want to do. The world is your oyster. Since this is a symmetrical thing, the left side of the corset top is the exact same as the right side of the corset top. There are pattern pieces for the half, and so you're going to cut out 4 because you need 1/2 and 1/2 for the outer and 1/2 and 1/2 for the lining. So you're going to cut 2 of each out of your outer facing fabric and 2 of each for your lining fabric. So now that we have 2 mirror reflections of our 5 pattern pieces cut out in each our outer fabric and our lining fabric, I find it really helpful to lay it all out like this, because the next step is that we are going to sew these panels together right side to right side. I mean, you can do this any way you want to, but I think the easiest way for me to do this without sewing anything on upside down or, you know, on the wrong side is I like to start with the middle front of the corset top. Sew them right side to right side, and then when you open it, you sew the 2 pieces on the side, and that way you can just kind of work out from the middle and it's easier to visualize in my mind. Once I finish sewing these together, I like to go in and press the seams down flat, with one side going to the right and one side going to the left. And you don't have to worry about the pressure ripping these seams open, because when we sew the casing for the boning, we're gonna sew it right along these seams and it'll reinforce it all. I also just got kittens, so you're gonna be seeing them. Once I have those pressed, I like to put them on my cutting mat, or if you're using scissors, it's totally possible to do this with scissors, but I like to go in and trim off the little extra bits that are hanging out past the clear line that makes the shape of the shirt. And don't go too crazy with this, because if you do too much shaping at this point, and the outer and inner shells are not even, when you finish everything off and tie them together in the front, you'll be able to see the back from the front or the front from the back, depending on if you're making it reversible or not. It's a good thing to check at this point that they're like really perfectly cover each other. They're the same shape. All the seams are lining up. So now we're gonna take the bottom edge, this edge down here, and turn it to the inside a 1/2 inch press, and then just kind of baste that shut. Since this is such an odd shape, I usually turn the very bottom of the middle up first, just in a flat line, and then I do these curved pieces separately. Just makes it a little bit easier. In case you don't know what a baste is, that is wider stitch. So each in-out of the stitch is a few centimeters longer, probably about 1 centimeter longer, and it's just enough to hold it down until you get to the step where you finally sew them together. It's like a temporary stitch. Next, we're gonna sew the outer shell and lining shell of our corset top together, right side to right side, along the top and side edges, leaving the bottom open. The reason we're gonna do this is because after we flip it right side out, we're gonna need that bottom open so we can slide the boning in. And again, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, before we turn the corset top right side out, we're gonna wanna trim the edges. This is a really important step, and one that I think I glossed over in one of my previous tutorials, my wrap skirt tutorial. And so I wanna give a shout out to _Lara. They commented this reminder for everybody, and I think they explained it in a really, really good way. Perfect, beautiful, succinct definition of trimming the edges before you turn inside out. So shouts out. And because I kind of glossed over that in my last tutorial, I wanted to make sure that I show the process here for the corset top. This is why we have our virtual sewing club. I'll demonstrate this with these really sharp areas, because the sharper the edge, the more fabric gets folded in when we flip it the other way around. So I'm gonna use my disappearing ink marker to show exactly where the stitching is, and that's more just for this video's sake. You don't have to do that at home. So to trim this edge, all you're gonna do is just thin out this excess fabric on the seam. And you don't want to go more than maybe 2 or 3 millimeters away from the seam, otherwise it might open up on accident. And you can do this across the entire top, just taking a little bit of fabric off everywhere if you'd like. But it's most important, I think, on these really sharp edges. And now we flip the shirt so the right side is facing out. And what you'll end up with is the body of your corset top. Lining, just like that. To understand the next step, we have to talk about the boning that we're using. So boning is just what you call the rigid plastic pieces that keep corset tops and other garment structures rigid. So as I mentioned, you can either use actual boning, or I literally bought 36-inch long zip ties from Home Depot, and I'm just cutting them to size. I don't know if this is a cheaper option, but I did it because I couldn't find actual boning at the fabric store. And unfortunately, although I do try to use as much secondhand materials as possible, I didn't have anything on hand that I could think to use for this. So I did have to buy some new stuff. So this is 3/4 of an inch wide, and it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. So we're gonna wanna make a 1/2 inch sleeve to slide this into. So we are going to sew 1/4 of an inch to one side of the seam, and then 1/4 of an inch on the other side of the seam. We're gonna repeat this on each seam. There are actually two methods to do this. You can either, if you're really, really comfortable with your sewing machine and you know where all the measurement lines are, you can just use that to sew a 1/2 inch away from the seam. I think the foot on my machine is about 1/4 of an inch, so I'll just line up the edge of the foot with the seam, sew, and then do it on the other side. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can also take invisible ink or marker, pen or pencil. Make sure you use fabric marker so that it comes off at the end and you don't have a big line drawn on your piece. But you can take your ruler and just draw a guideline for yourself. Here's the proper introduction to my new children, Edmund and Frida. They are the literal loves of my life, but they're very curious and very loud, and they will be interrupting tutorial videos. I will do my best to minimize it, but this is their home too. Now that we have sewn the boning casing, we are going to cut sections of this, or whatever you're using for your boning. We're going to cut sections to fit the boning sleeves that we just sewed. So I like to, I'll probably just start with the middle, and I'm going to lay it over the fabric to about where it'll hit the top, and then cut it right before there's going to be a seam line where you already turned down the bottom edge, and you're going to sew over that seam line a second time to close the bottom once all the pieces of boning are slipped into the shirt. So you want to cut each piece right above that line so that when you go to sew them close to the bottom, there's no plastic there stopping you from sewing. Very important tip: when you're cutting the boning, you do not want to use your fabric scissors. You never want to cut anything other than fabric with your fabric scissors because it'll dull them. So I have a separate pair of duller scissors to use for things like this. So you're just going to take it and chop it. You will remember from our materials list that I had nail file, or some sort of file, and this is where we utilize that tool. So I actually get two. I have one that's a little bit more gritty and one that's a little bit softer to finalize. And, oh, and here's Edmund. So for pieces of the zip tie that, like, this edge was already there, I didn't cut it at all, it's already pretty soft, but where I cut them, I am going to just take this nail file and file down. And again, it doesn't have to be a nail file, you can have one of those like metal files or anything, sandpaper, but you just want to make sure that you get these edges softened so that they don't, once they're in the fabric casing that you made, they don't poke through or poke you while you're wearing the top. So now we have all of these filed down. We're just gonna slide them into the casings. So now that we have all of the boning in the corset top, we're gonna sew right along that seam that we already have, just locking those two edges together and locking the boning in place. Sorry. And you want to be really careful as you're going so that you don't sew over the plastic, because that could be really bad for your machine. So I usually slow down once I am actually going over the bottom there and just kind of like hand pedal it along. We have the boning in the shirt, and we have sewn the lower edge shut over them so they can't get out. And we are almost done. The body of your corset top is finished, and the only thing we have left to do is add the grommets and lace up the back, and then you're gonna look fabulous. Welcome to my bathroom for the next segment. To finish off this top, we have to do the grommets, which is super fun. I love doing hardware. It feels very hands-on and tactical and fun. But because putting in grommets requires use of a hammer, you need some sort of a steady surface. So I have to do this in my bathroom where I have a tile situation here, a little tile counter. That's the word I was looking for. My desk in my room is a folding table, so I can't really do it out there because it's not strong enough. Or maybe it would work, I don't know. I haven't tried. I just use this. But also, you have to be really careful because you're using a hammer and you don't want to crack your tile. You know, I rent and I do not want to have that conversation with my landlord that I cracked the counter trying to build a corset. So I bring my mat in here, my cutting mat, and then I actually will also put a piece of fabric on top, like sometimes I'll just use a towel or something just to give some extra cushion so you still have the stability of the counter, but you don't do any damage. You can see on this version of the top that I've already built that I sewed a line about 1/2 inch away from the edge of each side to just add a little bit more stability where we're gonna put these grommets in so that you don't have this fabric slipping around too much. So we're gonna sew those 2 lines before we install the grommets. I'm gonna use these silver grommets because I used the darker ones on my last and I want to try new things. So there's 2 pieces to each grommet. The one with the little body piece and the flat one. So you need to find 2 of those times 5. So I mark 5 marks equidistant from each other using a ruler. I'll look at where I marked where the grommet's going to go and make a little plus so that the center of the plus goes right over the dot I made. Take a seam ripper, poke through the center of the cross so that you catch both sides of the fabric, and then I'll just kind of push lightly until I've created that cross in the fabric. You only want to go out like 2 centimeters in each direction, very, very little, because it opens up faster than you think it's going to. So once you've cut that little cross, take the side of the grommet that has the cylinder and try putting it through. If it comes out on the other side, you've done enough. If not, just open up a little bit more. Once we've broken through that other side, you're just gonna take this tool, the grommet tool, and put that also through so that the grommet and fabric are both resting in it. Take the flat side of the grommet, put it over your little sandwich, and then take this top grommet tool, the whole of it, and put it over the whole thing. And then you're just gonna hit that a few times. 2 grommets done. Now when you get to the second side, Measuring is much easier because all you have to do is line them up perfectly. And you can just mark right through the grommets you just made. And then they'll be perfectly even. Wait, try it on. We're almost there. I know you are excited as I am to finish up this project. I'm sure you've been working on it for as long as I have. That's why these are so... Making your own clothes is so satisfying because it really does take time and effort, but it's doable, and when you do it, it is really fun to wear and it is really satisfying. So I hope that you're with me. I hope this tutorial has been helpful so far, and it is now time to do the final step, which is lace up the back grommets that we just added. Now, you might have already picked out what you're going to use for your lace, but you know me, I am an avid second-hander wherever I can be. I have a box of random laces and elastics and things, and I figured I'd just pull it out and kind of take a look at what I have. That's what I did for the last one. Boom, look at that. This is like, I don't know what this was. This was either a drawstring on a pair of pants or like a shoelace or something, but perfect. That is gonna be our lace up. So, and it looks perfectly long, but you know, we'll know for sure after I try to lace it through. You can lace this up however you want. I'm just gonna quickly show you how I do it. Pull both ends through the top two grommets. Oops. Whoopsie daisies. There we go. Might as well even it out. It's gonna get all twisted, but we might as well start off with a fresh flat one. And then I'll go into the left side, into the right side, into the left side, and I'm choosing this arbitrarily. I mean, again, you can lace this up however you so choose. If we have some sneakerheads here, I'm sure you got some fun different things you can do here. I'm gonna be basic and just do this. Into the left side. Into the right side. And I'm going over under. And then finally, I like to go under over for the last one, where it's gonna be tied. Kind of looks like a Converse right now. Doesn't it kind of look like Converse? That's funny. Okay, and then here you just tie her up. And obviously you'll tie it on when it's on, but I like to tie it and just take a look at my handiwork because this is a good moment to take a step back and say, gosh dang, I did that. Okay, if all has gone well, you should now have your very own StitchMaster Corset top. This was a really long one. This is the most intricate tutorial I've done so far, so I would be so excited to see what you guys make, how it turns out for you. If there is anything that I didn't explain well enough that I could explain further, feel free to leave me a comment. I'm already thinking about making a follow-up variations video because my older sister tried this on. She's got a little bit more going on up here than I do, and she said that she would really need straps on this if she was gonna like functionally wear it out. So I'm thinking about making a variations video showing you how to make this with straps, or add straps if you've already made it, as well as possibly how to make it out of a stretchy fabric if that is of interest to you. I'd have to alter the pattern because if the panels are stretching, they have to start off smaller. Leave me comments, let me know what you want from me. I am really enjoying growing this channel, making these videos, but I want to make things that are useful. So I look forward to hearing from you. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and join the virtual sewing club. Oh yeah, and as always, I have my own special last step, which is to sew my clothing label on it, my StitchMaster clothing label on it. The example top I just finished in this tutorial, I am gonna put up for sale on my Etsy page. So if you want to buy your very own corset top made by me, this corset top, you can buy it on Etsy. See you next time.